Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k tactics video. So today guys, I will be doing a Black Templar tactics video. Specifically, I will be taking a look at the Black Tide tactic, which is a very traditional Black Templar strategy. Now what the Black Tide essentially works on, guys, is taking as many Marines as you can get your hands on. It's a pure infantry list, or near as damn it, and it essentially involves running a horde of Marines. Now, the reason I have talked about the Black Tide before, but my previous videos are out of date now because they were done before the new Marine Codex and before the new errata and before Primaris had really taken off. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the Black Tide again now, and we're going to be updating my list that I previously run, and it will hopefully give those people who have always been interested in the Black Tide, who are curious about it, a bit more information on how to best run their infantry horde of Marines. So without further ado, let's crack on with the video. So, as mentioned, the Black Tide essentially works around just, if you're going to take a horde, why not take a horde of power armor? Because that is actually really tricky for many opponents to deal with. Because Marines, realistically, you can get 100 of them in a Black Tide list, and that is a lot of infantry for many armies to deal with on a good day, let alone for that to be Marine infantry. You know, power armor in 8th edition does mean something. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, power armor doesn't mean that much." No, power armor does mean a lot, because previously in previous editions, power armor either meant nothing because you'd be because people just have certain weapons that would just cut straight through it, and now most of the time in power armor, even if you get hit by some of the most potent weapons like plasma, you're still going to get a 6-up save, and in cover you're going to get a 5-up save, which is much better than what you would have previously got. So that's one of the big things to take into account now. Why this army works is you're taking a lot of guys, and those guys are all tough. You know, Orc Green Tide works because people take like 180 toughness 4 bodies, and it relies upon the toughness 4. And Guardsman Tides and or things like Tyrannid Tides, they work because whilst they're only toughness 3, there's loads and loads of them. Well, Black Templars are like, well, I'm just going to take loads of power armor, and I get the best of armor saves, and I get the best of numbers, and the best of toughness. So it is really, really good. Now, the reason why it's traditionally been Black Templars which have run horde armies is because the Black Templars have access to a very unique troop choice in the form of the Crusader Squad, and quite frankly, guys, this is the cornerstone of your Black Tide list. It is. If you have any hope of wanting to run a Black Tide, you might as well resign yourself to the fact that you are going to be taking Crusader Squads. Now, the Crusader Squad in the more recent Faith and Fury update has gone through a couple of changes. So previously, you could take a 5-man Crusader Squad, which came with 5 initiates, which are the equivalent of tactical Marines. You know, toughness 4, 3-up save, weapon skill 3 plus bliss skill 3 plus the normal Marine stats. But typically traditionally in a Black Tide Crusader Squad, you could take a 5-man unit and get a special and a heavy weapon in a 5-man squad, which was something regular tactical Marines could not do. Now, unfortunately, that has changed. That is something to be aware of. You now need to run a 10-man squad if you want to get a special and a heavy weapon in your Black Templar unit, which is a shame. They've had that ability for a long time, but it is now gone. In its place, we have a new rule called Paired Combatants, which means if you have an equal number of neophytes, which are essentially scout models, and initiates in your squad, then when you're in combat you can reroll 1s to hit, which is quite good. And that brings me on to something that many people may not be aware of. not only the unique thing about the Crusader Squad is that you can take a mixture of Marines and Scouts in the same squad, which has some quite significant tactical benefits. It means if you're, for example, if you're taking a hit for a weapon that would deny you any kind of armor save whatsoever, then you just take it on a neophyte, who's, like I said, he's equivalent of a scout, and he's cheaper. He's only got a 4 save, so you just take the hit on the neophyte. Well done. You just melt a gunshot, killed a neophyte, and your good old initiate, who's much more valuable to you thanks to his power armor, survives. On the flip side, if you get hit by a plasma weapon, your neophyte would die. So instead, you can take a punt, and on a 6-up, you could save that on your initiate. So it does actually give a bit of an issue to your opponent, because then he's like, well, I'll just drown you in small arms fire. And you say, well, okay then, but I've still got power armor on, so I'm going to be in cover, and I'm going to get a 2-up save. And even if you chew through all my power armor guys, I'm still on a 3-up save with all my scouts. So basically, they're also in power armor. So it does, it does actually present some good tactical choices to the Templar player. Now, that's one unique thing about the Templars. The second unique thing about the Crusader Squad is that it can take a power weapon on a non-sergeant model. Okay, your sergeants are called Sword Brothers. So they've got all these cool names. Initiates, Neophytes, Sword Brothers. That's the main reason you want to take these things. But from a tactical point of view, what you can do is, if you have a 10-man squad, you can take a Sword Brother, you can take a initiate with a special weapon, and then you can choose a second initiate to either have a heavy weapon, like a heavy bolter, or a power weapon. And this can be a power sword, a power axe, a power maul, or a power fist. Which is actually really nice. There's no other troop drawers out there that the Marines get their hands on which can do this. And what it's very good at doing is combining that with your Sword Brother. So what you want to do if you choose to take a power weapon initiate, you want to pair that with a power weapon Sword Brother, and you want them to have matching power weapons, because essentially what that initiate is doing is just acting as extra power weapon attacks for the Sword Brother. That's how I see it. So if you take a power sword on the squad leader, take a power sword on the initiate as well. Likewise, if you take a power axe, you can take on one, take power axe on the other. It keeps things streamlined, to be honest. Number one reason to do it is if you're running a horde of Marines and you're already having to keep pace with the different armor values in the squad, then you're going to want to get into combat. It's much easier if you charge into combat with one of these squads to be able to, rather than go, okay, here's my 3 power sword attacks and here's my 2 power. Here's my 3 power sword attacks. Here's my 2 power axe attacks. You can just go, right, I've got 5 power sword attacks. Boom, let's go. So that's what I would recommend. Now, the last thing that is unique about Crusader Squads that is the fact that, unlike tactical Marines, any model in the unit can swap out their bolter for a bolt pistol and chainsword, and the scouts can swap out their bolter for a bolt pistol and a Astartes combat knife, which is functionally the same thing as a chainsword. Essentially, guys, you can take assault marine style units that are troop choices and also are not limited on their special weapons and can take more power weapons. So when you put all that together, you start thinking, holy crap, this is actually a really interesting unit. I've got a squad here which I can tailor for any combat role whatsoever. Any. And I can't believe I've forgotten this, but I have saved the best till last. Okay? Because the last really, really cool thing about Crusader Squads is you can take them 20-man strong, like the legions of old. Now, you can take a maximum of 10 power armor guys and a maximum of 10 scout guys, 4+ armor save guys, neophytes. And the minimum squad size is 5 power armor. But you could take 5 power armor guys and then 10 scouts. Previously, you had to, for every power armor, you could take a scout. That's what the old rules used to be. Not anymore. Now, if you want to have just like a solid core of Templars in power armor, your initiates, loaded out with combi weapons and plasma weapon and special weapons and heavy weapons, and then just have like this gaggle of younglings, these neophytes, these trainees, just like all 10 of them following them around. You can do that, and you can save yourself a lot of points. Because if you did that, you're essentially paying less than 12 points per model. You're paying like 11 points per model, roughly, at that point, which is quite good. You know, that does bring the average cost of your Marines down and still lets you get access to special weapons that you wouldn't normally get access to in your scout squads if they were on their own. So, when you take all of these factors into account, as I said previously, you can really tailor your Crusader squad for any battlefield role whatsoever. Do you need a close combat, MSU style unit? Then like a budget Vanguard veteran squad, or a more choppy assault squad. Then your Crusader squad's got it. Just load everyone out with chainswords. Do you want a horde, an absolutely massive block of just combat potential, to 20-man strong, everyone armed with bolt pistol and chainswords? Then you can do that. Do you want a shooty fire support unit, 10-man strong, 5 neophytes, 5 regular guys, combi plasma gun, heavy bolter? You can do that. It's really, Crusader squads can be tailored to do anything, and I know a lot of people poo-poo on them now because we still pay 13 points per power armor guy, whereas regular tactical Marines only pay 12 points. But you cannot overstate how important it is to have a squad which you can just load out for any situation. And one of so that's the Crusader squad covered. How do I run my Crusader squads? What is my recommend load? This is the kind of thing that you guys are here for. What do I recommend as a loadout for my Black Templars? Okay, I would say your take all comers Crusader squad should be armed with a sword brother with a combi plasma and a power sword, and then a plasma gun on an initiate as a special weapon, and then another power sword on another initiate. Everyone else should get bolt pistol and chainsword, or scout's case, bolt pistol and combat knife, and there should be an equal 5-5 split. That means 5 power armor, 5 neophytes. Okay. The reason that is my recommended go-to is that squad can literally do anything. Okay. You need it to do a little bit of fire support. You've got 2 plasma guns in there. Get those bad boys into rapid fire range. You're doing good. You've also got a smattering of bolt pistol rounds and a crack grenade. That's enough for just a little bit of fire support. You need them to go into combat. They can do that. They're happy in there. You need them to be able to hold their ground. They can do that. They're durable enough. 5 and 5. You've got enough power armor in there to make the squad durable, but you've also got enough cheap bodies in there to make sure the squad isn't overpriced. Now, the disadvantage of that loadout is a 10-man tactical Marine squad is paying 12 points per model, but everyone's got power armor. I recognise that. I totally get it. But that 12-man tactical Marine squad is way more susceptible to close combat than these guys. That tactical Marine squad actually has less tactical flexibility than your Crusader squad, because it's not a tactical squad. It's a shooting unit. It's a shooting squad. And you're not taking that is my recommendation, my recommended loadout for if you don't know what you're facing off against and you're not sure what to take. That's what I'd go for. Okay. Now, how would I? So I know a lot of people will be asking the question of, what about Primaris Marines? Okay. My experience has been facing off against Primaris Marines and seeing them used in battle many times. They don't quite fit in a black tide, unfortunately. Bearing in mind that you're going pure infantry, the main problem that I find with Primaris in a black tide is the units are too... I almost say they're too specialised. Okay, which sounds weird, right? But your intercessors have only really got guns which can kill infantry, and your infiltrators the same, and your incursors likewise. Yes, your incursors can ignore cover and can infiltrate with the board. That's very true. And yes, your infiltrators can deny enemy deep strikes, which means you can deny an enemy deep striking down and charging you and getting the drop on you. This is also very true. But the problem is all those units have 0 anti-tank options really available to them. And I don't really count the landmine that the incursors can drop. So that means you start looking towards Hellblasters. But the problem with Hellblasters, they are very expensive points-wise. And every model that... And the enemy will very easily identify the Hellblasters as the main threat and just blow them away. Just blow them away. So that means you're left... it's very easy for the enemy to chop your legs out from underneath you. And after one shooting phase these days, you can't have units which don't have bodies to eat wounds for the special weapons. Not in 8th edition. People will just chew through you. It's one of the... you need bodies that can be essentially act as ablative wounds for the damage dealers in your squads. If you don't have that, someone's just going to kill you. And they're going to kill all your anti-tank, and then you're going to have no anti-tank, and then you're screwed. You've got a bunch of Primaris bolters, trying to run around and do some damage. It just doesn't work. Okay, the one unit I would say is really worth considering for Templars is Reavers. Okay, big fan of the Reavers after the recent changes. They've gone down to 16 points per model, and thanks to Shock Assault, these guys can be rocking 4 attacks each. Okay, now that is really significant, and it leads me into my next point about Templars, which is buffing them. Okay, your basic Crusader Squad, loaded out as previously described, can perform pretty much any battlefield function that you want. Okay, but it will not last that. And whilst it's a good base for your army, you will need other units in your lists because you'll need other units that can perform slightly more specialist roles. So if you were to take just 10 squads of 10 Crusaders with just bolt, pistol, chainsword, and a couple of plasma weapons, you're going to be slightly too loaded up on the combat side of things. And what you have to remember is, like I said at the beginning of the video, is Templars are not the frothing berserkers of the Space Marines. They are a tactical... They are zealous, don't get me wrong, but they are a tactical... chapter who pride themselves on martial skill and the way of the blade, not on running around like a lunatic with your pants on your head screaming blood for the blood god. That's not how they work. Okay, if you want to play that army, go and play World Eaters. It's very satisfying. Okay, but it's quite a shallow satisfaction, whereas playing a Templar army can actually be quite tactically satisfying if it all goes just as planned. So the key to Templars is you have to. I will talk about layering the buffs on in a moment, but we'll talk about building the list first. Actually, that'd be a better way of doing it. So the key to running a Black Tide army is in the new. We've talked a bit generically, and we have talked about Primaris, but the key to running a Templar army in the latest meta, in the errata, in the Black Tide in the latest errata, is you've got to accept the fact that you're going to be in Devastator Doctrine turn 1 and you're going to be in Tactical Doctrine turn 2, and there's nothing you can do about that. And if you try and rush to the Assault Doctrine, then you're still throwing away 2 turns of potential buffs and 2 turns of doctrines, essentially, which you can't afford to do. Okay, you just can't afford to do that. So as a result, you need to be able to actively take part in every phase, and you also need to be able to actively take part when every doctrine is activated. So you need a smattering of heavy weapons. Just a few. Just enough that you're not totally overloading on it, because you're only going to be in this phase for a turn, but you know, you not so few that not like none, so that you're not taking advantage of it whatsoever. My recommendation for your Templar units is to be looking at things like heavy bolters. Okay, they're cheap. You can put one in every other squad. Half your squads could be armed with these things. You can take 5 or 6 of them, and that would be fine. You're taking advantage of the Devastating Doctrine. AP -2 heavy bolters are really, really good, and heavy bolters sit in that sweet spot of strength 5 wounds everything at worst on 5. So you can chuck those things at knights, they'll chip some wounds off, or you can chuck them at infantry and they will shred light infantry and they'll wound on 3s. So yeah, heavy bolters would be my recommended weapon for your Templars, because you're probably going to be on the move as a Black Tide. You're going to want to close the distance, and you're going to want to also still be able to at least take advantage of the Devastating Doctrine a little bit. Now, the next thing is you're going to want to be able to take part in the Tactical Doctrine, okay? Which means we're looking at rapid fire and assault weapons. Now, as previously mentioned, my recommendation for Templars in Crusader Squads is to just take a plasma gun in every squad that you can, even if it's just the one. I mean, we'll get into a bit more detail, but my most recent Black Tide list has a combi plasma and a plasma gun in all 7 of my main infantry squads, my main Crusader squads. Okay, some of those were shooty Crusaders, which we'll get into in a second. Some of those were choppy Crusaders, but they all had combi plasma and a plasma gun, because I want AP -4 plasma. I want it in and around my mouth. I want it all over me. Okay, it is AP -4 plasma. Cannot be overstated how good it is. So many people jib you on those 6-up saves with those bloody power armor guys, and so many people instinctively go to roll that dice like, oh no, sorry, AP -4, and you just see it in their faces. They're like, oh fucking hell, AP -4 plasma. It's just, it's so powerful. So take one on every squad. And I mentioned there were shooty Crusader squads as well. So I said that my go-to Crusader squad format was the plasma gun, combi plasma, double power sword, bolt pistol, chainsword, on all the guys. That's true. That is my go-to Crusader squad. But my second choice, and I think you should always consider taking some of these, is the shooty Crusader squad, which is combi plasma on the sergeant, plasma gun on initiate, heavy bolter on initiate, and then 2 bolter initiates and 5 bolter scouts. Now, I will not deny that is essentially a worse form of tactical squad. Okay? Which sounds weird, like, why wouldn't you just take 10 tactical squads? I mean, you could do that. Absolutely, you could do. Maybe I'll be honest, like, I like that Crusader squad because previous to the errata, that was a way of getting 12-point tactical marines, because you got 5 scouts, 5 initiates, average point per guy, 12 points. Now tactical marines just do it better, and you can take tactical marine Templar squads. So there's no reason not to do that. It's just, I'll be honest, it just doesn't quite feel right. It doesn't feel right. We've got access to Crusader squads. We should. I like to use my Crusader. I've got so many of the things, but realistically, you could just take a tactical squad and get the same thing. And if we're being super efficient, that is the right thing to do. The only thing I would say is that the Crusader squad, if you get into combat with your shooty squad and you've not got a captain nearby, that paired combatants rule can kick in, and it can help you fight your way out of a combat situation with your shooty guys. But it's not a rule to necessarily be relied upon, and so realistically, the shooty Crusader squad is dead, and the shooty tactical squad is probably the one that you want to be looking at. You know, I just got to accept these things. From a tactical point of view, this is the case. The choppy Crusader Squad is obviously still completely relevant because you can take all those choppy weapons. So anyway, so you've got your shooty squad, and I would normally take at least a battalion of these guys, and I'm talking. You probably want to take 4 of them. That way, you've got 4 heavy bolters, which are able to take advantage of the Devastator Doctrine, and then you've got all that plasma in all your shooty and your choppy Crusader squads, and you've also got a smattering of bolters across all your shooty Crusader squads or tactical marine units. So you're actively taking part in the Devastator Doctrine and the Tactical Doctrine. Now, the important thing is, I would load up on like 50% close combat Templars, and then like 40% assault weapons and rapid fire weapons, and then like 10% on heavy weapons. That would be my weapon load distribution, because you're going to spend the least amount of time with Devastator Doctrine. You just need enough there to give you a good little turn 1 punch. But you could spend turns 2, and if it becomes tactically viable, turns 3 in the Tactical Doctrine. Maybe you don't want to quite close the distance. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you're playing Hammer and Anvil and you haven't quite been able to get across the board and into combat yet. You still want to be able to do damage, so you stay in your Tactical Doctrine for turn 3. If that's the case, then you're going to want to have enough rapid fire weapons to take advantage of that Doctrine for an extra turn. Okay. And then, like I said, you want 50% of your units really, and your weapons really dedicated towards close combat, because that's where you're going to be spending at least 50% of the game. So it kind of makes sense. Now that's sort of the general list advice, things taken into account. I will now tell you what my 2,000 point Black Tide list, my current iteration, is. Okay, I take 7 10-man Crusader squads. 4 of them I load out in the shooter configuration, double plasma, heavy bolter. 3 of them I take in the combat configuration, which is power sword, double plasma. Okay. I then take another 20-man squad. Okay, and I make these close combat as well, and I give them all just bolt pistol and chainsword. I just take them as a pure combat, just blob, just a sack of meat, just to throw at the enemy, power armored meat. And then I take a squad of 9 scout bikes. Scout bikes, weird choice, am I right? Actually, no. We'll go over that more in detail in a moment. But and I give all the scout bikes. I've got twin bolt gun, a Astartes shotgun, and combat blade. So they've got a lot of close. They've got a lot of shooty and a lot of choppy, because each scout gets an extra attack from the combat blade. And then I take the Emperor's Champion. I take Chaplain Commodus. I take Halbrecht, all the special characters. And then I take a lieutenant and another chaplain. Okay, that's my 2,000 point army. Now, finally, we're going to start getting into the buffs for your Black Tide. So if you assembled that list in front of you, and you were like, what do I do with this? You know, I've got these, like, I've got 104 marine bodies on the table. I need to do something with this. Or I will give you some advice now. Okay. The reason you take the big 20-man squad, which is in response to the new litanies that Temps have in play. Previously, you wanted to take all 10-man squads because it would let you basically get 12-point Marines. We've now talked about how tactical Marines get that, so you don't need that as much. And also, you didn't really want to have the enemy able to overkill you too much, because if you take a 20-man squad and you take 12 wounds, then you lose 12 guys. You take a 10-man squad and you take 10, you take 12 wounds, you still only lose 10 guys. So 20-man squads are susceptible, but the reason you want at least one of these units is because you want to be able to pile buffs onto them. Specifically, you want to be looking at litanies. You want to be putting on the Litany of Divine Protection, because you can put that on one Templar squad a turn, and it gives them a 5+ feel no pain. That's against anything. Okay, that's against anything at all. Now, Templars normally, as part of their chapter tactic, have a 5+ feel no pain against mortal wounds, and that's okay, especially in the new Grey Knight meta where smite spam is everywhere. But you're not going to be facing Grey Knights every game. So you are going to be wanting to take that 5+ feel no pain and just slapping it on that 20-man unit, and you want that 20-man unit to be at the front of your deployment zone, just pounding across the field into the enemy. Second litany you want is it's a Black Templar specific one, and if you charge or perform a heroic intervention with a unit, you get +1 attack. Now, it doesn't work if you get charged, so it's kind of like a poor man's Shock Assault, but considering you get this in addition to Shock Assault, it's not too bad. Which means your basic Crusader squad has 2 attacks base. Then you have a combat knife, so that goes... 1 attack base, then you have a combat knife, so that's 2. Then you charge, that's 3, and then you charge with this litany on, so that's 4. That's 4 attacks from an 11-point man if you're looking at a neophyte, for example. So that's really good. So you want to be able to turn 1, you're going to want to put both those buffs on that unit, and you're going to want to sprint it out into the enemy's face. Okay, now Templars have access to a unique stratagem called the Emperor's Will, which allows you to move and advance and still shoot pistols and charge on 1 unit for 1 CP. So you put that on your big 20-man squad, suddenly you've got a 20-man Crusader squad who is moving and advancing and can still charge with a 5 feel no pain and 4 attacks per dude. That is pretty sweet. Then you combine this with Helbrecht, who you make your warlord, and he has the frontline commander ability, and he is therefore giving everyone around him +1 advance. So suddenly, you see, you can move and advance, and you're getting +1 for that advance. But even if you get a poor roll, you can just CP to re-roll it. So you're going to get those guys really across the board. And then, even after you advance, you're still able to charge. And even if it's a long charge, you can take advantage of the other part of the Templar chapter tactic, which is you can re-roll the charge distance. 1 or both dice. It's like, here we go. But better. Because it's Templar. So that's really, really good. So you can see straight away how those buffs are all coming together. Now, whilst your enemy is dealing with the big distraction card effects unit, the last buff to remember is you can use the Black Templar unique relic, the Crusader Helm, to at the beginning of the turn pick a unit, and that unit counts as being in the Assault Doctrine. So you get the Assault Doctrine from turn 1. No other Marine chapter can do that. None. And you can pull off some pretty incredible things. I mean, I'm talking about doing this with a 20-man Crusader squad, but you could take a squad of 10 Vanguard vets, pile all the buffs on we've just talked about. There has been an infantry squad for the Emperor's Will, by the way. And the Vanguard vets could move, and they could advance, and gets crazy. Because that's a 12-inch move, plus D6 plus 1 inches. And then they can still charge afterwards, and you could then give them all like storm shields, and that's just going to start getting like a unit that the enemy is not going to be able to get rid of very easily. However, I do prefer the 20-man Crusader squad simply because it's 20 bodies. It can cover the whole deployment zone and just wallop itself into the enemy. That's why I prefer the 20-man unit, purely for numbers. And remember, guys, you're playing a horde army. Numbers are really important. Many as you can get in the field. So whilst the enemy is busy dealing with the 20-man infantry squad, and it will probably take them a turn or two to deal with that, bearing in mind the buffs you've got on them, you can then have the rest of your army moving up in a big death ball. Everyone, you're going to want to crowd everyone around Helbrecht. You want a conga line, you're going to want to do whatever it takes, but you want Helbrecht in the middle of that death ball, and he is just giving everyone all rerolls all the time because he is effectively a chapter master. Combine that with the lieutenant, who you put the Crusader Helm on, and everyone is rerolling all hits and rerolling ones. Because the Crusader Helm not only lets you pick a unit to go into the Assault Doctrine, it also lets you increase your aura range by 3 inches, which is pretty good. So at least practically everyone in your army is going to be getting reroll 1s to wound at least, and the majority of them should also be getting advantage of Helbrecht Chapter Master aura, so reroll all hits. That actually gets scary when you're running 40 Shooty Crusaders and a Scout Bike Squad. Now, speaking of the Scout Bike Squad, those guys can perform, they're very tactically flexible. You see, they can perform shooting very adequately because they've got 4 bolter shots each. The moment you get into Tactical Doctrine, those guys are going to start rinsing people. But don't forget, they also have got Astartes shotguns, which means they can, if they get within 12-inch range, they effectively get 2 more bolter shots. That's really good. And they can fire their shotgun and their twin heavy bolts. That's 6 shots per guy at AP -1. Okay, but they all got combat blades, which means they've all got 2 attacks each per guy base, and then when they charge, it's 3 attacks each. And then you could also, if the enemy destroys your 20-man squad a bit sooner than anticipated, you could also put the litany of lots of attacks on them as a second wave. So your Crusader squads go in as the first wave, your Scout Bikes go in as a subtle second wave, and you can then on the Scout Bike squad play the stratagem Oaths of Honor, which targets any Scout squad, and the bikes have the Scout keyword, and they can reroll all wounds for 1 CP in combat. So it's a really powerful thing because you've got 9 Scout Bikes charging in there. Again, these guys have 4 attacks each, base each, very easily. They've got incredible threat range. They've got a 16-inch move. So think about it. These guys actually sit initially behind your lines, and your 20-man squad goes in, starts doing the damage. Everyone else is moving up, and then turn 2, turn 3, these guys just come pounding 16 inches. Once they've deployed their reserves, 16 inches right up to the front line. Second wave, shock assault unit. Bam, they're in there. They're hard as nails to get rid of because they've got toughness 5. They're going to have a 5 feel no pain if you've played your cards, but they're going to have 4 attacks each per guy. It's going to be glorious. It's glorious. So you can see how the buffs really start piling on. Now, one of the big things that Templars have struggled with in the past is them making contact with the enemy, and then the enemy pulling back and just shooting the Templars to death. The Templars have a rule called Tenacious Assault, which allows you, if the enemy tries to pull back, you roll a dice on a d6, the enemy cannot fall back from you in combat. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. Faith and Fury stratagem. So you can start seeing how all this comes together. You've got lots of bodies. Every single squad can perform, you're not at risk. If you lose that 20-man squad, who cares? It bought enough time for your Scout Bikes and your other Crusader squads. Maybe they shoot the Scout Bikes first because they're wary of all those bolter shots. Fine. The 20-man squad is in their face. Maybe they shoot up both of those. That's still fine. It takes the enemy a couple of turns to whittle through your 20-man squad and your bike squad. Guess what? That's 70 more Marines that have just pounded up the field pretty much unopposed. And they're going to do 70 Marines. Is going to unleash unholy levels of bolter fire at close range. That's still 14 plasma guns from those squads, combi plasma and plasma guns. They're all rerolling all hits and rerolling ones to wound, so they're overcharging and it's boltering, and then they're just going to tear you apart in close combat because they love being in close combat. Because you turn 3 kicks in, you've got the board, and you go, right, I'm kicking everyone into Assault Doctrine. I've had 2 turns of selecting which unit I want to be in the Assault Doctrine. Off you go 21 Crusader Squad, off you go Bike Squad. And then everyone else turn 3 comes along. I have taken advantage of Devastated Doctrine. I've taken advantage of Tactical Doctrine. But now we're in for the main event. I switch to Assault Doctrine. And this is when the Templars come alive. Because we haven't yet talked about the most exciting thing about the Black Tide. The new and improved Black Tide. Which is the Knights of Sigismund special rule for Black Templars. Which is our super doctrine. It's our super chapter tactic. And essentially, guys, if we are in the Assault Doctrine and we charge or heroically intervene an enemy unit, any infantry unit, I apologise, any hit rolls of a 6 automatically wound. It's called Knights of Sigismund. I cannot overstate how powerful that is. A lot of people think it's not that good. Let me tell you, it is so freaking good. It is so fucking good. It just takes all the stress out of it. What's the biggest disadvantage of power swords? The best thing about power swords is the high AP, right? When you're Assault Doctrine, AP -4 power swords. AP -4 plasma's good. It's like AP -4 is really good. And when you can spam lots of AP -4 attacks, like, I don't know, Close Combat, Shock Assault, Rapid Fire Plasma, you see the theme here. You're getting lots of the best stuff. So AP -4 power swords. What's the worst thing about power swords? They're only strength user. How do we mitigate this? By auto wounding on 6 to hit. Fantastic. There's a couple of other buffs. So that really kick in this sort of turn 3 death ball charge. Because, you're still, even your shooty squads are going to want to charge in because they're all going to be AP -1 in combat. We're all going to be getting loads of attacks per guy, at least 2 attacks per guy. It's just really, really potent. And you then take into account a couple of other buffs, like now you've made it to combat, Helbrecht's other special rule kicks in, which is everyone within 6 inches of them gets +1 strength. Oh, what's that? Strength 5 Marines across the board. Oh, what's that? Strength 5 is the best strength to be in the entire 8th edition because it means you wound even things like knights on 5s. That's really good. And those knights, you hit those knights on 5s with power swords, which are -4, so the knights don't get saves against them, and you're just throwing down boatloads of attacks because, oh, what was that I mentioned earlier? Chaplain Grimaldus. Oh, what does Chaplain Grimaldus do? Oh yeah, any 6s to hit become 2 hits. Exploding 6s on Grimaldus. That's right. You will bolt, pistol, chainsword, power sword down a knight. You will soften up with that plasma and bolter, and then you will get in there with the power swords, and you will tear people to pieces. Now, I'm not saying this is a good matchup for, knights are not particularly a good matchup, but you can do a lot of great things by layering on the buffs. And this is the last thing I want to mention about you, Black Tide. I haven't touched upon every strategy you can use for this, because everyone likes to build their Black Tide a little differently. But I've given you some generic take all comers advice. Not generic. I've given you some take all comers advice, and this will be my last thing to talk about, is Black Templars are really interesting because they kind of get all the combat buffs that they want. They kind of, if you do it right, you can get this. And if you've been listening to this point in the video, then this is your reward for sticking it out. You can kind of do what Blood Angels do, but better. And Blood Angels are Blood Angels are seen as the quintessential combat unit for Space Marines, right? But Black Templars can kind of out Blood Angels. Okay, so the Black Templars. What's the big thing that Blood Angels get? +1 to wound in combat. Okay, but if you've got Helbrecht and everyone's got Strength 5, then that's like having +1 to wound, except for you get it every turn because. But Blood Angels only get it on a turn in which they charge or were charged. But you get it every turn because Strength 5 is always in play. If you were hitting a knight you're strength 4, and and you get +1 to wound, then that 6 becomes a 5. Same with your strength 5. See what I mean? So, yes, it does help Blood Angels on the +1 strength is more advantage on the lower end of things. Like if you were wounding Guardsmen, for example, Blood Angels do get to wound Guardsmen on 2s in combat. That is true. But Blood Angels, you don't really, as a guard player's experience, but Marines don't really need that buff to tear through Guardsmen. So Black Templars can actually take on bigger things just as good as Blood Angels. Blood Angels, but we get +1 to our advance and charge rolls now. Well, guess what? So do Black Templars, frontline commander. Thank you. But also guess what? Blood Angels, Savage Echoes, you get Blood Angels get +1 attack. Okay, but we auto wound. Okay, think about that for a second. So Black Templars are able to go toe to toe with Blood Angels, but we have all the advantages of being a main Codex army. We get our own unique units. No, Blood Angels like, yeah, we get Death Company, and Death Company are really good. Yeah, let's not forget, that is true. But in a fight between Death Company and Crusaders, the only factor that matters is who gets the charge off. And Crusaders are like, after you've, like half the points of, Crusader Squad is like half the points of a Death Company squad. Because Death Company people are always going to be like, they're going to be taking jump packs, they're going to be loading on like loads of power weapons and stuff. So, but when it really comes down to it, a 10-man Crusader squad, if it charges a 10-man Death Company squad, it'll win, because it'll be in range of this death ball. It'll have all the, it'll have the exploding sixes. It'll have the Knights of Sigismund on it. And Death Company, likewise, if they charge a 10-man Crusader squad, they'll tear it to pieces. I'm not denying that. But one squad has an average points cost of 12 points per guy, and one squad has like an average point cost of like 18 or not, if not more, maybe 19 points per guy. Like a 10-man Death Company squad very easily can become a 200-point unit. Not hard at all with the cost of Thunderhammers these days. So when you take that into account, and the Crusader squad then has the troop choice, so it's OBSEC. So that, when you think about that, it really, the big advantage of the term of the Templars is what I mentioned at the beginning, which is we're not frothing lunatics. We're actually really about martial skill, way of the blade, and being quite tactical. And if you actually take advantage of, let Blood Angels go off and be the frothing lunatic vampires. That's not the way Templars do things. We like to beat people through skill, and not just through berserk charges. And that's actually something that took me a long time to learn in my Black Tide. So, like I said, the Templars can really layer on the buffs to the point where they can buff their army to the same level as Blood Angels, and then they get all their Templar stuff as well, which is really, really cool. And we get access to some really unique stuff that Blood Angels wish they had. Like, I even talked about the Aurelian Shroud, a relic that gives everyone for one turn a 4+ vulnerable save. Blood Angels wish they had that. Black Templars, can put on. Actually, let's actually start this up very quickly. Last thing. So if you've got a Templar squad versus a Blood Angel squad, the Blood Angel squad can get +1 to advance and charge, +1 attack, and +1 to wound. Okay, 3 main buffs. The Templars can get +1 attack, +1 advance and charge. We've got that one covered. We get Knights of Sigismund, so we auto wound on 6s. We get the +1 strength, which is like having +1 to wound in many, many circumstances. And then we start being like, oh, but then these, like, what about the 5 up feel no pain? Oh yeah, no, Blood Angels don't get that. They don't get the 5 up feel no pain versus from the litany. Oh, and the Templars also get to reroll all charge distances, and we also can do the other litany, which gives us +1 attack. So suddenly your Templar unit is getting as many attacks as a Blood Angel unit, thanks to the +1 attack litany. And then you've also got Your Templars are do the advance and charge thing. You can do the reroll charge thing. You actually, when you stack it all up, the Templars have access to more stackable buffs. This is the thing to take away. If you're trying to decide between Blood Angels and Black Templars can get more buffs stacked on than Blood Angel units can. 1 for 1, Blood Angel units are probably better than Black Templar units. I'm not going to deny that. But in a Black Tide versus Red Tide scenario, when you are running a pure infantry Templar army, you can stack on so many buffs in a big bubble around you that it actually gives you a really serious advantage over the Blood Angels. And if you want to see this in action, then go and check out the latest battle report on the Scholar Progenium channel. That's my brother's channel, where he runs lots of Blood Angels, and my Black Templars took on his Blood Angels, Black Tide versus Red Tide, and spoiler alert, Black Templars won out. And that is not that's not something you would expect to see when the Blood Angel player is running a Sanguinary Guard bomb, Death Company bomb, and 2 Smash Captains. And I had, Scout Bikes and Crusader Squads, and that was pretty much my entire army. But because of the amount of buffs I was able to stack on to my Black Tide, and this list, this is why I always advocate the Black Tide for the Templar army. Bringing this video back to the focus, I always advocate the Black Tide army because that's the way you can stack on your buffs. Exploding 6s, +1 to hit, +1 to advance, not +1 to hit, +1 attack, 5 for no pain. So when you start adding +1 attack, 5 exploding 6s, and auto wounding 6s, it starts getting silly quickly. Anyway guys, I'm going to end the video here because I actually intended for this to be a quick tactical video, and I've actually gone quite in depth on all the aspects of the Black Tide. Like I said, my recommendation is you need at least 100 Marines. You want to be taking a solid core of Crusader squads. You need Helbrecht. I highly recommend Grimaldo, though he's not an auto include, but he is very good. And you also really want to be able to take that Crusader Helm. That is really key. Let me know what you guys think. Anyone else out there who's been running Black Tide? Any thoughts? I'm not convinced by Primaris for the reasons I explained. You get your legs chopped out from under you. But has anyone out there had any experience with Primaris in a Black Tide? Anyone run a Primaris Black Tide? That would be really good to get their perspective. Put your comments down in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. And of course, I'll see you guys next time.